Okay, good evening, everyone. Sorry. Thanks for being with us this evening. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. No, first we're having a public meeting. Sorry. So the Administrative Policies Committee will host a public meeting to consider tax write-offs pursuant to sections 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act 2001. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, we will close the public meeting. Okay, and now we're going to call the meeting of the Administrative Policies Committee to order. First, I'd like to have approval of the agenda. Do you have a mover? With the addendum that you've received. Moved by Councillor Osanek, seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favor? Councillor Allen? Thank you. Opposed? Carries. Next, we need confirmation of the minutes from our last meeting in September. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Osanek, seconder. Councillor Allen, all those in favor? Carries. Thank you. Next, disclosure of potential pecuniary interest. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, Richard Allen, of the Council of Corporation in the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter of report number 1816/24, as I am currently employed by a film and video production company and they proceed to that.
Great. Thank you. All right, so now our delegations. Our first delegation will be speaking to the film policy amendment. So Councillor Allen will leave the room. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Brent Nurse, who's here with us this evening. You have, yeah, great. And all delegations have 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Hello. Oh, there we go. I think the only thing I wanted to comment on was a couple of things. For the film policy is if there's going to be provisions, I don't know if this is a question thing or just a statement thing, sorry. I wasn't, this was a last minute thing. But about independent production in the city. Because a lot of this outlines for big productions, film permits and whatnot, which is great, like it's needed. But what if somebody like me who's independent has small budgets or shooting a music video or a commercial or any kind of video at all that is profit based? Are they under the same requirement as the big productions? And that's a big concern because that could really limit production in Kingston for Kingston artists and Kingston business people. And then the other thing is the connection. I spoke with you about this yesterday, but about the connection with Tourism Kingston and this, because I sort of see it as more something that we need to be building business in town, encouraging jobs, as opposed to we want to bring big productions here. But this doesn't really outline how we grow production within the city itself. So that was just a concern that I had. But yeah, mostly, and just as an example, one thing I outlined was, say, the rule about shooting, the proposal for the bylaw is if I'm shooting a video on private land and I have permission to be there to shoot, but if I have to park my business vehicle on a public street, then I'm required to get a permit from the city and go through everything and possibly pay quite a bit of money, I think. I know there's a sliding scale or whatever, how it's going to be proposed, but that could really lead to limiting production in town. So, because it just outlines there on page 9 of 12, Exhibit A there, facilitate a production company vehicle parking on city property. The production company will need to request a film permit from the city. So it just seems a little, that's just the wording of that's a little odd. And it's, so far, I mean, everything up till now, personally, my production company is always permission, private land, private parking, but, I'd like to grow and get bigger, and it just seems a little odd that even like my vehicle is a production vehicle. So So does that mean I have to get a film permit once this is passed, just to be shooting in a private location? So I think that's about it. Those my main concerns. So
Thank you. If you'd just like to stay there for a sec, we're going to see if there's any questions.
sure.
Great. Any questions for the committee? No? Okay. Seeing none, thanks very much.
Thanks.
And we will get some answers to your questions as well.
Sorry.
We'll get some answers for your questions as well. Thank you. Okay, so next we are going to move on to the business on the agenda. First item, item A, 2016 interim audit. And this is a report of the Chief Financial Officer and City Treasurer. So there's a recommendation, and Ms. Kennedy will speak to it. First, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report is before the committee with respect to our external audit plan. And as I think most of you have been through this before, this is an opportunity for the audit team to be here and to present what their plan is for the 2016 fiscal year. We have a bit of a change this year. Michelle Pody, who most of you know, retired this past year from KPMG. And so I'd like to introduce Laurie Huber as the new partner on the engagement team. And I'm going to turn it over to her, if that's okay, Madam Chair, and she can present the audit plan.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So I'll walk you through the highlights of our audit planning report for the 2016 financial year. And I apologize, I'll refer to my pagination numbers on the top right hand of the report. And I know your pagination is a bit different in your package, but hopefully we'll get there together. So I know the report has been pre-circulated, so I'll try to walk us through the highlights, and I can certainly tell you sort of at the outset, our audit plan hasn't changed substantially year over year. So at executive summary level, which starts on page 2, speaks to the audit and the business risks. So naturally at KPMG, our audit is a risk-based approach. So we look and identify the risks and address our audit procedures to focus on those pieces. So historically at the city, we have not identified any specific risks, and nor have we based on our discussions with management this year. I'll also speak to, on the right-hand side, in terms of communication. So we'll be here before this committee here tonight, delivering our audit plan, and we'll be back to you in May to deliver our audit findings. And the bottom piece there on page 2 with respect to independence, again, just a reminder, as your external auditor, we are required to be independent. And there certainly have been no projects to date thus far that we've been engaged in with the city from a non-audit perspective that might be thought to encroach on our independence. So moving on to page 3, with respect to our audit plan considerations. So this is the page where we really look to see what has changed year over year. So looking from an organization perspective, we had a good planning meeting with management last week to get an understanding of any changes year over year. Certainly we have not identified any as of yet, nor do we expect anything to change from now to the balance of the year. We certainly are keeping ourselves apprised of the financial system implementation that is underway and is planned for the upcoming fiscal year, so we'll stay in touch with that. On the right-hand side there, we would report to you at this point should there be any changes in accounting standards or auditing standards, and there are actually none, neither of those apply this year. So moving into page 4, I would like to just have a few minutes to touch on the areas of focus that we've identified with respect to our audit approach. It's certainly not an exhaustive list, but it helps you give a sense of where we do spend some of our audit time. So again, just a reminder with respect to expenses, we are proposing to do a payroll controls approach again this year. Due to the magnitude of volume of transactions in that regard, that's what we see as the best audit approach to address the concerns there. Just a reminder as well with respect to employee future benefits, again, this year will be a full actuarial valuation year, so there's some extra work that will be required in that regard that we'll work with management to address. And the bottom piece there with respect to contaminated sites liability, if you may recall, that was a new standard last year, so we'll work to make sure that that's being consistently applied as well in this fiscal. Moving along on my page 5 with respect to our audit approach again, we've identified here, with respect to professional requirements, a couple of fraud risks that are sort of standard for the industry, if you will, with respect to our professional standards. You would have seen them in previous years, so no change year over year, and we'll certainly be working with the finance team to identify our audit plan to address each of those risks related to controls and financial reporting. On page 6, we've outlined the components to the financial statements within the city. So you may recall they are consolidated financial statements. So they do include a number of components. So again, the components have not changed year over year, nor has our audit approach with respect to each of those components. So we'll audit the various entities at an individual level, and they will be rolled up into the financial statements at the completion of the audit. On page 7, we have outlined again our materiality. So at the end of the audit, in our opinion, we will say whether or not the financial statements are represented in all material respects. So materiality, we have left actually at $10 million, which is essentially a function of the volume on the income statement for the municipalities. So similar numbers year over year, so we've kept it at 10 million. That essentially rolls down to about 2% of expenses, which is what we would expect to see for an organization of this size and scope. And for your information, which I think is new actually this year, we've outlined each of the component materialities to the components that we spoke to previously. So again, looking across the page there's certainly nothing that is terribly significant relative to the overall materiality of the city to cause any concern. On page 8, again, we've highlighted the team. So I've got Vicky Leakey and Rebecca Profit. Vicky's a senior manager and Rebecca is a manager. They've worked on the city for a number of years. Myself, I've worked on lots of municipalities. I did work on the city once upon a time, so I'm very happy to be back on the city team. So we come together with lots of municipal experience, in particular with respect to the city. On page 9, we've got value for fees. So what we think is important with respect to our role as your external auditor. So again, we'd like to speak to our municipal experience. So just out of interest's sake, so out of Kingston alone, we audit 10 municipalities. So we've got lots of knowledge in that sector and attend lots of events. So again, with respect to KPMG's specialists, we've got a whole host of specialists that we can pull in to, depending on the circumstances. And with respect to the statutory audits, we'll make sure all of the pieces are done individually and come together as a whole with respect to the consolidation. On the bottom there on page 9, something new this year, so something we're pretty excited about is trying to do some data and analytics. It's sort of getting lots of airtime these days in many venues. So we're going to bring that to the city this year. So we're going to work with management to identify a couple of new areas where we can apply this new tool, which essentially helps us look at full populations rather than sampling. So we'll be able to come back and give you a report on that at the completion of our audit. On page 10, we've identified again the audit cycle and the timetable. So again, similar timing to what you would have seen in previous years. And the timing is certainly consistent with what management have provided to you in their report as well. So moving into the appendices, so the Appendix 1 on page 12, so my page 12, just speaks to all of the rigor that we have as a firm with respect to our audit quality and how we manage our risks and all of the things that go in behind the scenes that enables us to be able to be your external auditor and certainly be independent through that process. Page 13, again, for your information, KPMG's audit approach and methodology, as I said at the outset, we certainly are a risk-based audit and use technology as well through our workflow, and that has not changed year over year. Through the report as well, we've also included for your information the required communications, so that's on my page 14. So the engagement letter has been issued for the 2016 financial year. It was addressed to the CAO and we have received that back signed. But again, for this committee's information, we've included a copy of it for completeness. So that we're having our discussions here tonight with respect to the audit planning report. And one that comes up each and every year is required inquiries. So professional standards do require us to obtain those charged with governance views about fraud and risk of fraud in our audit approach. So we will be, consistent with previous years, setting up a meeting with the chair of this committee to have those discussions before we start the year-end audit work. And at the balance of the audit, when we come back with our findings, you will see a management representation letter and, of course, our audit findings report at that point. And I think as we move through to Appendix 4, I apologize, my pagination is, so Appendix 4 is data and analytics, so that starts on my page 15. So again, just gives you a little bit more background on why we're excited about DNA and how we're going to apply that to the city. And then Appendix 5 is the current developments on page 16. So as I said at the outset, there's no standard changes coming to the city this year, but as you can see, as you work through the next 3 pages, there's lots of upcoming standards to your financial reporting framework, which is public sector accounting standards. So lots of things to think about, and we'll certainly be working with management to work our way through those pieces. The first set of standards really don't start until the 2018 year end. So again, early days, and we're providing that for information. And similarly, Appendix 6, which is on page 19, I've included that there this year because not only is there upcoming changes on the accounting side, there's certainly auditing standard changes as well. With respect to our auditor's report, it's already started over in the European countries and it's coming to Canada, likely not coming till 2018, but certainly gives you a flavor of the things that will change in that regard. So that, in summary, is our report at a high level for 2016. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the committee? They look pretty satisfied. Oh, no? Okay, excellent. So no questions. There's a recommendation. Okay. Okay, so the recommendation is that the 2016 audit plan as presented be received for information purposes. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Camden, seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so our next item is tax write-offs pursuant to the Municipal Act. We have a report from the Chief Financial Officer and City Treasurer. Ms. Kennedy, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is the tax write-offs report that comes about 3 times a year to the committee. I won't go through the report. There is an attachment that has the list of properties and the reasons for the write-offs and why we're bringing this as a recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions from the committee? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember this item from last year. Is there any significant difference between last year and this year?
If you mean in terms of total write-offs, we're probably better this year. We had a couple of large ones the last couple of years, if I remember specifically with respect to Queen's properties and some of the reviews that were done there. So we are expecting it to be less this year, and actually just because we're getting budget ready now and looking at some of the projections, we will probably be over budget a bit, but only because we are looking at increasing our allowance for the write-offs at the end of this year. So Queens drew that down, and we tried to sort of extend that over a couple of years. So we will be looking at probably trying to increase our reserve for the write-offs up again to put us back in a better position by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Stroud. All those, or any discussion? First of all? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to... Okay. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the film policy amendment, but we'll be using the one that's in the addendum and not the agenda. And Commissioner Herter, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through, I'm just going to give a little bit of background and maybe try to provide some information that will respond to some of the questions that we heard earlier. First of all, the reason why we're proposing to actually go with the report that's in the addendum here is because we have made a slight revision to the recommendation. We've actually added a clause in there to allow us the ability or the flexibility to make some minor changes, what I would consider procedural changes, so that staff have that delegated authority. And the reason for that is because this policy is quite detailed in terms of even time frames to process applications. Typically, we would find that in procedures. That's what we do with a number of other departments, but that was already laid out in this 2014 policy. And we want to be able to work with the community and see how we can improve the process over time. So we'd like to have that flexibility to be able to make some of these procedural changes. as time goes on. As I indicated, the original policy was endorsed in 2014, and it's a policy that really looks at city-owned properties only. So it doesn't regulate filming on private properties or other governmental properties. We request that anybody filming on city property obtain a permit. And the reason for that is because we actually know what's going on. There were some incidents a few years ago, and Councillor Osanek, you'll probably remember that, where we had people coming in City Hall and filming without permission. So this was a way to make sure that we could have some type of control or know who's coming in the buildings and actually filming. There is no fee for the permit, so we are not charging anything for somebody to actually get a permit. So a small production company can easily do that. There's no fee. And we can accommodate quite, I'm going to say, faster turnaround times for the smaller company. This past summer, we had a video shoot, which I think we had probably 3 to 4 days to kind of coordinate everything, and we actually made it happen. So we are definitely interested in working with the smaller companies as well. If somebody needs to park on street, I think that those individuals would require any kind of parking permit. Really, it depends on the length of the time that they want to park on street, and if it's an area where parking is free on street or paid and so on. And we do work with the parking folks to make arrangements if a parking permit is required. That's not a filming permit, that's actually a parking permit that would be required, which we have for others, other areas like construction, for example. As I indicated, the policy tries to really look at city-owned property, and we're changing the lead within the city, and that's the main reason why we're actually bringing the policy forward. Initially, the communications department was the lead on this policy, and I think what was identified is a lot of the work that's required to support those film opportunities are actually more logistical in nature. So road closures, or how do we get access to certain things or certain properties. So it's a lot of logistical work, and it's something that was much better suited for the special events team, who has worked most recently in partnership with a number of other organizations on the Tragically Hip concert. So the Film Commission that we are talking about as well in this report is something that that we look forward to working closely with Tourism Kingston in terms of establishing a film commission. And that commission will be working on growing the local companies and talent, as well as attracting some of the larger productions from out of town. We've had a lot of interest, obviously, with some of our sites in the city, and most recently, the Kingston Penitentiary site has drawn a lot of attention in the industry, which is exciting. So I think I'm going to leave it at that as an overview, and maybe we can take questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councillor Sinek?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for Mr. Nurse, who presented, and his one question was, how will we grow our production? That would be a different report that Tourism Kingston is working on?
That is correct. So currently we are proposing in our sales and operating plan for 2017 that we hire or contract a film officer to take a look at the current landscape for film and make recommendations, meet with stakeholders, meet with local film production companies, review the policies that you see here, and make recommendations that would allow a film commission to start in Kingston in 2018 and develop film not only for tourism, not only incoming film, but also locally produced films to develop as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Stroud?
Sorry, I didn't see this before, but a letter from Braden Dragomir, and I just was skimming through and I noticed he talked about the permit process and the application timelines. he mentions other communities where they have a Sudbury, Guelph, and Hamilton, 10 business days, and I guess he's saying that the permit, although free, might cause delays in production. So I was wondering if staff could comment on that.
Commissioner Hurdle?
So through you, Madam Chair, we expected this question actually, and it's part of the reason why we changed our recommendation. So the timeframe that's currently in the policy is what was approved back in 2014, and we're not suggesting that it should stay at that particular timeframe. That's why we want to have the ability to make those small procedural amendments where we're able to work through shorter timeframes. And there were some very good comments in this letter that's attached, and we want to definitely work with the industry to see where we can make some improvements.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so it's sort of the policy is still being shaped in the finer details, I guess is what you're saying.
Commissioner Hurdle?
Through you, Madam Chair, the policy, while the policy is in existence, it has been for 2 years. So, and what we are hoping to do with the recommendation is that we have the ability to make amendments to the policy that would be minor in nature. So if we're talking about the time frame, that we could look at how we can reduce that, which those elements are typically what you would find in procedures. We have permit application procedures, for example, for rentals of arenas or a sports field, and those timeframes are not necessarily in the policy, but they're more in our procedures. So that's where we would like to have some flexibility, and that's what we're requesting actually of the committee and council, to be able to do that without every time, if we're able to shorten the time frame from 15 to 10 days, we're not having to come back for another amendment.
So this is an area where delegated authority, if well-defined, could really help speed up the process then. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none. Can I have a mover, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Stroud, seconded by Councillor Sanik. Any discussion, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Carries. Thank you. Okay, so now we need a mover. We need to move into the Rideau Crest Home Board of Management. So, Councillor Allen, you're going to move that we dissolve ourselves into that group. Great. Resolving. Okay, excellent, whatever. Councillor Camden, you're seconding? Super. All those in favor? Great. All right, so.
Good evening.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead.
This report contains information from August 19th to October 14th. Our occupancy rate remains high at 99.2%, and we currently have 409 people on our waiting list. As reported to Council on November 1st, our home was accredited with commendation in September. With this level of accreditation, the home surpassed the fundamental requirements of the accreditation program. The Alan Detweiler Nursery School held their grand opening in September, and the first intergenerational programs began on October 7th. We held a volunteer fair in September, and we had 12 people attend, and to date have 5 more registered to volunteer. The terrace upgrades are near completion. They are freshly painted, and this week wall protection in a contrasting color is being installed on the lower part of the walls. The auxiliary has purchased a number of paintings, which adds that finishing touch. As of the end of August, the home is $97,000 over budget. Areas over budget are nursing, dietary, and environmental services wages, all largely due to an increase in the number of employees on modified work. The home is working closely with Human Resources and Occupational Health to review the volume of employees on modified work, and we are looking at the processes for modified work, WSIB obligations, and training programs to work towards preventing injuries. Rideau Crest Quality Improvement Plan is based on predetermined indicators. we have attached the Q1 2016 Canadian Institute for Health information results to this report. Occurrences of stage 2 to 4 pressure ulcers have risen over the last quarter, and this continues to be an accuracy of staging or documenting what the actual wound is. Our best practice champion lead has been conducting bedside education on accuracy of staging of wounds, so we should see those numbers decrease significantly in the next quarter. Our worsened bladder indicator has risen. The RI coordinator has been monitoring the declines and auditing for accuracy. We are also trialing a new incontinent product, which we hope will have an impact on next year's results, or next quarter's results as well. We continue to have reductions in physical restraints, falls, and the use of psychotropic medication. And we'll continue to monitor these indicators.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed two items that you just spoke to that may be related: the increase in the number of employees on modified work and the increase in the numbers of pressure ulcers, which you said would likely be corrected with more accurate reporting of the different stages. And that while that may be true, the root cause of pressure ulcers is often related to workload, and modified work is directly related to workload in the sense that you get more injuries when the workload is higher. So I'm just wondering if you're comfortable with the recent changes in reduction of total number of nursing hours and how it relates to what appears to be an increase in these two measurables.
Ms. Gee?
Through Madam Chair. When we have people on modified duties, we are fully replacing them. So we have them on duties that they're able to perform. So we will fully replace them. So there is no reduction in staffing. Thus, our increase in the overage in the budget.
Yeah, but that wasn't really my question. The cause of modified work is from workplace injury. Workplace injuries which are caused by, in part by high workload, and that's the same thing that causes pressure ulcers. So I'm wondering what you have to say about these two measurables and how they might suggest that the recent reduction in nursing workforce hours might be leading to a decrease in these numbers.
Ms. Gee?
We always need more staff. That's given across the board. When we looked, because we review the indicators on a regular basis at CQI, we took a deeper dive and discovered that, and looked at each of these ulcers that were triggered on the CI-HI report, and looked at each and every one of the residents. And it was, in fact, the nurses were staging shearing as stage 2. So they weren't totally comprehending what the stages of wounds were. So we weren't documenting accurately. So that made our numbers go higher.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to add something. I just want to make it clear that workplace incidents are not all related to necessarily workload. So I think it would be it'd be very easy for our HR department to figure out or how to do things maybe differently if it was only workload that was contributing to workplace incidents. But there are a number of other factors that are also needed to be taken into consideration, and that's usually what we review with HR when we have the list of these incidents and what have been the causes, and that's where we need to go back and make improvements. And I want to be clear that that's not necessarily linked to workload.
Thank you. Councillor Stroud?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you any more on that. I just would like to point out that it's possible that there's more than one cause of the increased numbers, and the inaccurate reporting is probably not 100% responsible.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Reports for information purposes only. So we're not. That's great. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So now we need to resolve ourselves back into the committee. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sanik, seconded by Councillor Candon, that we rise from the Board of Management for Rideau Crest Home. Next on our agenda. Oh, wait. All those in favor? Great. Opposed? Good. Carries. So we have no motions. Okay. No notices of motions. Any other business? Councillor Allen? Okay, yep. There are 2 pieces of correspondence in the addendum? Yep. Okay, yep.
So I just wanted to ask, we don't normally take these requests for bylaw extensions here at the Administrative Policies Committee, so I'm not sure where this request should be referred. If we refer that, what's the process to refer that to?
Great. Commissioner Hurdle?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So this, I believe, is related to the noise bylaw that will be coming back to the Administrative Policies Committee in December. So we've received it for our review and consideration into the revisions that we're currently making to the bylaw.
Okay, great. So we've moved from other business into correspondence. We have 2 items, which you've noted, and that is it for our business. Date and time of next meeting. Our next meeting is December 7th, 2016. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Sanik, second by Councillor Candon. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.